Is that your camera?
Good afternoon, everybody. Can I have your attention up front? How was your day? Good. Yeah? Doesn't sound that good. Sorry, how was your day? Good. There you go. Hey, just a show of hands. Who made the Team Canada on Snow workshop? Very good. All right. Well, then this now is officially your nap time because I'm just going to cover what we did on snow. Anyways, I'm going to introduce you to Team Canada. Over here on the camera is John Gillies. He's our assistant head coach. In the back, that's Simon Chapeau. Wave to the crowd, Simon. Tracy Fraser, Sonny Barreau, James Scott, Robert Tuzino, he's the chairman of our board. Harry Schmuck, he's our managing director. Jeff Marks over here, everybody. Stephen Young, Tom Klingspan, Luke Nero, Josh Foster, Jean-François Beaulieu, and Fred Lupin here. So we're going to get going here. I'm the head coach of Team Canada. My name is Warren John. So we're going to get rolling here. We're going to take you through how we teach in Canada. And how we teach in Canada is based on engagement of our students, involving them in the learning process. So when they finish lessons in Canada and they go and tour the mountain or go somewhere else, they know the knowledge that they've taken with them, and they can explore other parts of the mountain and take that with them wherever they may go. In Canada, so just a little bit about Canada here, we have different certifying bodies. So we have the Alpine side, which is the Canadian Ski Instructors Alliance. We also have CSIA, which is the snowboard side, CSIA, which is our telemark down there at the bottom, and then also the Canadian Association of Disabled Skiers. And we're all separate organizations, however, we're working really hard together, and our main purpose is to develop ski instructors that are relevant for our industry and our industry partners. Right? At the end of the day, the people that we train go out and they teach the public, and if the public have a good time, our industry survives. Would you agree? Yeah. Absolutely. So, the other side of things that we're promoting in Canada is the health and well-being, right? So take part in a snow sport, whether it's skiing or snowboarding or what have you, and that's going to keep your health up and keep us all healthy. And also one of the things we're looking at now, and we all know the ever-changing world, we're getting a lot of new Canadians who have never seen snow before. So we're also trying to look at ways to engage our new Canadians as well. And lastly, we take all of those organizations together, whether it be telemarks or not, whatever type of sliding equipment you might be on. A future for us in Canada is trying to find a way that no matter what sliding equipment you're on to start with, that there's a commonality amongst it. So as people decide to change from equipment to equipment, that we really, the end goal is just engaging them in the snow sports world, okay, regardless of what they're sliding on at the time. What you'll see here today is an evolution from we're quite a bit older than that, but down here in the bottom left-hand corner, that's our first full interski team in 1965. That's when Canada first participated, not just as observers, but as participants, demonstrators. We operated the team in '87 in Canada, the Banff Cats, we hosted the interski team, all the way up to the folks you see along the wall here today. And what you see is that evolution of where we started and where we are now. There's a few things that we as an organization are really proud of. First and foremost, this is our 80th year as the Canadian Ski Instructors Alliance. So there's a lot of history involved in where we've gotten to. We've got around 20,000 members that are current year to year. We have a national standard across the country. Even though our country is quite large in size from coast to coast, we've been able to create a system of training that promotes a national standard. So what you get on a level, from a certification level 2 on one side of the country is the same on the opposite end of the country. And lastly, one of the things that we've been able to do is create a lot of continuing education. So when people come and take their certification from us in Canada, they don't just disappear from there and teach skiing. We have programs that continually develop their skiing. If anybody was with Tracy Fraser today, we're working with programs that specialize in teaching children. We have programs now we're working towards teaching the seniors as our customers age, and so on and so forth. The bottom line here, though, for us is what you see. We are a student-centered approach, okay, where the student is at the middle of the learning, and we are there as instructors to enhance their learning. It starts with the science, though, so our technique down here in the bottom, we look at the science, physics, biomechanical principles. We have a learning philosophy that I'll talk about there. This is great, I can point and everything. The learning philosophy, which is science-based, which then promotes what our methodology is, what it is that we teach our instructors how to teach when the public show up to their ski schools. So we'll start with that. Okay? Our methodology is based on making decisions. Okay? If you think about it as an instructor, every time you stop and start again, there's probably something different in front of you. Maybe it's the terrain. Maybe it's the lighting of the day. Maybe it's the snow conditions that have changed. Maybe, just maybe, it's my student who's getting a little bit more tired. Potentially, they're getting a little bit nervous about the terrain that they see. So every time you stop and start with your clients, you have to make a decision. So even from our early levels, from level 1, our entry-level ski instructor program, that's what we're trying to do, as opposed to creating just a sort of a standardized approach. We're looking at training our instructors how to make decisions. So that's our model there. It starts in the middle there with the learning contract. Okay? We look at the situation around us. We pick an objective, and I'll get deeper into all of these as we go, and we develop their motor skills. Because at the end of the day, that's what your clients want. So looking at the learning contract itself, okay? This is where we start to build a relationship with our student. This is where we need to know what our student wants and things like that. So here are some of the considerations we need to do. We need to know what their goals are. But if you ever had somebody show up in your lesson, say, my friends, my goal is to get down the bumps over there, and they've got rear entry boots that are on the wrong feet. You ever seen that one? Come on, I know you have, right? So that is their goal, but what we need to do is make a shared goal with it. All right, something that's realistic within the time frame, and so on and so forth, that we have our students. From there, we want to know what their experiences are, right? Other sports, so on and so forth, those types of things that we use, and we try to relate to that throughout the lesson. One of the other considerations that we need to make is their physical condition. We know that even within this room, and even myself up front right now, there was a time about 7 weeks ago where you would probably take me down a really steep run. Okay? If you saw me now, there's a good chance that you probably wouldn't, right? So these are some of the conditions that you have to make. Okay, and the last one is psychological. Okay, sometimes we have students that are ready to learn, right? And that could be somebody who's quite nervous. There'll be other times when we have somebody who starts the lesson, who is very confident, excited, and for whatever reason, throughout whatever happens throughout our lesson, at some point potentially they get nervous, but it also that could inhibit their ability to learn at the same time. Okay, so the learning contract, it's not just it's not just the first 5 minutes when you meet and greet, but this is something that we look at throughout the lesson. Every time you stop and start, every time you get off a new lift, you change terrain, the weather changes. All of these things could potentially change. So let's listen in here on some of the things that have come up. This is, you're going to see some video clips. You don't have to listen to me the whole time throughout the presentation. But this was on a recent certification course that we ran, and there's some of our demonstrators in here were on the videos. But you can hear some of them building it. So I want you to watch for some of those things. Did they take into consideration the physical, the psychological side of things, and so on and so forth? So here we go.
I love being exposed to different teaching methodologies, approaches, and visions of skiing.
I find this environment kind of intimidating and overwhelming sometimes.
I think the relationship side is really important, and so if at a point, just like
also want to know when you're maybe not in your comfort zone. That'll help me a lot, and I think that'll help you a lot too. So, if there's something that I'm doing or whatever that doesn't work for you, feel free to let me know. And one of the things I want to recognize is that, like we said on the last run, sometimes you will be ready to push yourself and someone else in the group won't. So thank you for sharing. Let's get going skiing. One of the things I'm already starting to do is to look at who I have in my group and watch you guys ski a little bit. Right? I need to assess both mentally, which is a little bit of this, but also physically and how everybody's skiing, right? Before I can start to figure stuff out. I'm trying to lay some groundwork here, and pretty soon, we'll start to pinpoint some things. I think that's part of the learning contract in any lesson, is that at some point, I need you to trust that I'm here to help you individually, and that trust, I think, comes through some of that individual feedback. How's everybody feeling? Awesome. Pretty good? How you doing? Great? Okay, excellent. I look great. I'll settle for that. Awesome. Okay, good.
So all the time, every time I'm stopped and I'm talking with you, I have another learning contract every time. Yeah. Okay? It's a continuing. Let's go.
There you go. So, at the very beginning there, you can hear there's one of the clients who was saying, this is what I want out of my session today. That's them sharing their goals, and then Jeff worked with that to, talk, can back and forth, the two-way communication to ensure that he's going to satisfy that goal throughout a session. You also heard, maybe one of the first was a bit quiet, but she talked about that she feels very nervous in a situation like that, in a group situation. And so these are some of the things that will greatly affect a student's ability to learn in your lesson if it's not something that you've made yourselves aware of. Okay. From there, we need to, first and foremost, we've got to create a safe learning environment. Okay? We choose our situation at that point. In our situation, we talk about choosing a situation, we talk about looking at the conditions. Okay, you saw the conditions at the first thing this morning, right? They started out as a little bit firm and they ended as quite a bit soft, right? And throughout the day, that's going to happen, so you have to make that a consideration. Then you choose the terrain. The terrain, the steepness of your terrain comes into play quite a bit as well. And when you look at the terrain, we're looking at how can that piece of terrain, maybe it's a side hill, maybe it's a little roller, maybe it starts to get a bit flatter. How do we use that terrain to assist the learning moments? So let's take a listen in here on some of the considerations that some of the team members make when they talk about terrain, some of the recognitions that they make.
So everyone agree with me, the terrain, well, the snow is pretty good, man. It's much better than we had yesterday.
What does it look like? The situation is quite pretty flat. The terrain is quite more consistent. And then this is a little bit more easy to achieve a better result.
Our terrain situation right here is a bit steeper. Right? The light is a little bit flat. So if I relate my intermediate parallel demonstration to your average intermediate, how do you think they're going to respond in this situation here? Yeah, they're going to tend to move back and up the hill, hey?
There you go. So, at all times, conditions are always changing, your situation around you changes. And so we need our new instructors, and even our most experienced instructors, to ensure that they're always taking those considerations into mind. So from there, then we're objective-based skiers, or ski teaching, right? And what we mean by that is we have to choose an objective for your student, right? And that could be, the biomechanical or psychological situation at the time, right? And also what their shared goals were. From there, we look at the situation to help us choose how fast or how slow we're going to go, how big or how small the turn shape might be, and how carved or how skidded the turn shape might be. Those are our skiing objectives. Whatever moves you make, that's what we're trying to produce for our student. You'll notice how often does a student come to you at the ski school desk and say, I want to learn how to pivot, or some sort of technique or skill base. Not very often, right? Most of our students come to our ski school desk and they'll say things like, I want to learn how to slow down on the seat so I can't control my speed. I want to be able to find my way through the bumps. Those are objectives. Okay, that's how we classify a skiing objective. So let's listen in to some of our guys.
Maintain some speed control, and then just make it a little bit easier. Okay? Cool. And then that roundness of the arc, look, it's very dynamic. I mean, the speed might not be as fast down the hill, but it's very quick across the hill. Okay? So cool. All right, you guys are on the right track.
My goal is to to glide through the transition.
Just try and stay in that transition of plateau a little bit longer before getting into it.
Yes, but just be careful to don't have a pause. Like just to have a continuing movement by actively bending your grounded legs. To find what is the third shape you need to achieve your specific goal, and I set to you. Like example, I was saying to Sam, I want to have Sam less crossing the fall line that way. I want to have you a little bit more going down the fall line. This is the skiing objective.
The skiing objectives is just what the ski does on the snow. And I think this kind of describes it. The ski can skid or the ski can carve. The ski can go fast or slow, and the turn can be big or small. And those are sort of the parameters that we really have to adjust when we talk about skiing objectives.
Great. So then from there, as the instructor decides where they're going to go, what turn shape or speed is most relevant to the student that's in front of them, we make a technical assessment. We have to see how our students are skiing before we can start adding something to the way that they ski. So we use something what we call our technical reference, and I'll review that in a moment. And what we're really looking for is, we've got a picture in our mind of what good skiing looks like, don't we? We've seen a whole pile of it outside already up here from all of our demonstrators out there. And so what they're looking for is, they know what good skiing looks like. What they're looking for is what's missing, as opposed to what the student is doing wrong. Because we know that if a student is rotating, it's because they have to. If a student leads the turning effort by tipping their body, it's because they're missing some sort of motor skill that causes them the need to have to ski that way. So we're looking for the parts that they don't have in their skiing. Okay? And this is based on a set of guiding principles. It defines efficient and effective skiing for all skiers, all ability levels, equipment, and all that kind of stuff. So we've created the guiding principles to encompass all skiers, okay, in all conditions that we might come across. And here they are, very quickly, we can go through them, but we're looking for our skiers to use all the joints so that they can maintain their balance. Okay? Being a balanced stance, they're allowed, they can provide them with the ability to manage the forces acting on the ski and the skier. We're looking for our skiers to lead the turning effort with their lower body. All right? And that's not just always turning and creating a big skidded type arc, but it's the lower body also guides the ski onto its side cut or onto its edge. And so we're engaging the ski design. Okay? The separation that we have in our skiing allows us to create angulation so we can stay balanced on the outside foot, and that's what provides us with our grip, whether it's a deep angulated position or just a slight bit of angulation. And we take all of our movement patterns, and if we coordinate them, we're going to be able to take the forces that are acting on the ski, right? So coming up from the ground, but also the spinning forces in skiing, and we're going to be able to direct those from one arc to the next. So we have flow within our skiing, and it looks, progressive at that point. So we take that's our filter when we watch our skiers. Right? And when we see the piece that's missing, or the part that we think is going to help them the most, then we want to develop a motor skill, which is a simple action, or a motor pattern potentially, which is a linked number of motor skills. Okay? Here's our reality though in our world here. Most ski lessons, we have a pretty short time frame. Maybe it's a half day, maybe it's even just a couple of hours, and we don't see those clients again. Okay? We have an ever-changing environment. We've seen it today, we've already talked about that. Sometimes they're not just working with one student, they're working with a group of people. So that's going to make your motor skill development potentially different as well. And we want our students to leave our lesson with knowledge versus just a bunch of information about skiing. Okay? And this is where we start to get a little bit deeper into why we do what we do. Okay? This is based on, if you saw my presentation 4 years ago in Argentina, we started looking into how we could use the science of experiential education, okay, taken from David Kolb, etc. And we've created our own little system here where we talk about reflective learning, where the ski instructor builds a task for their student. The student will reflect on what they just did. We, as an instructor, will help them understand why it worked or why it didn't work. And if it gets to a point where the student understands, then we can start to vary that movement pattern. And that's the science behind the reflective learning cycle. Okay? So let's take a look here at some of our demonstrators talking about designing a task. All right, so introducing a task to a student.
As we're moving through the bottom part of the turn, what I want you to feel down through here is that you just sort of pick up the tail of your uphill ski slightly. It doesn't need to be super high or anything like that, right? In between turns, or at least, before you initiate the next turn that you're headed to, I want you to let yourself get a little bit tall, right? So stand up a little bit, and when you do that, and you start to turn the new, and try this with me here, let's do it by standing on the uphill ski, we'll get a better sense for the move. But if you just think of turning your femur, so not turning your foot or anything like that, but just turning your femur, right? You'll notice that, if you imagine that happening as you're tall on the snow, the ski would be turning on the surface of the snow, wouldn't it? It would probably create some skid, okay? And that comes through this action right here of turning the feet. So let's try this. So where it's a bit steeper here, I want you guys to try the skidded part of that. So between turns, stand up a little bit, turn both legs, right? And you'll feel the ski skid a little bit on the surface of the snow as you roll through the turn.
When you're working with kids, you're going to use drills, and it's pretty easy to create a new motor pattern when you might hold the pole or do something like that. But it's easy to make a new motor pattern with drills and exercises. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll use terrain to create a new sensation or to create a new motor pattern. And when you're changing something, you're making a new motor pattern, it's challenging. So I take a little easier terrain. And the last one is to block an existing motor pattern. That's my least enjoyable one because people love that feeling of maybe it's rotation, and then I might give them a task that would block that rotation and force them to steer with their lower body.
There you go. So you're setting up the student for what's going to happen next, right? So when we're developing the motor pattern, the skill, when we design a task, and you heard some of these in some of those clips there, first and foremost, it has to be a specific movement. And in the top picture there, it might be where you bend the knee, right? So it includes part of the body and where in the turn the student is asked to do that. From there, the task and what you're asking your student to do must be observable, not only by yourself, but maybe others if it was a group lesson, so people can see a direct response from what it is that the student is doing. Okay? And lastly, our tasks need to be measurable. Okay, so you heard Jeff talk about you might feel the skis skid on the surface of the snow. All right, so there needs to be some sort of ability to measure as the student whether or not they could feel or recognize the outcome of the task. So what we do then with the task is so we introduce the task as what you just saw there. What you're going to see next is the ski instructor priming their student as to what may or may not happen as a result of performing the task. So let's listen in.
Our learning philosophy is reflective learning, right? And part of that is priming. And what priming is it's just telling you the answers. You said that very well, right? You just gave us all the answers. Perfect. I'm glad that I did, right? Because there's a difference between reflecting or thinking and guessing. Right? Guessing what answers are, as opposed to going out and trying something that you know what may or may not happen when you try that thing. Right? So what it allows me to do is what I'll do right here is I'll just ask you a couple of questions about what you found. Rip it up here. Let's take it slow, kind of an intermediate pace. If you get away from in that triangle, so for example, if you feel suddenly that you're standing up here on the toes, or you feel the back of the boot and the heel a lot, those are indications of getting out of that triangle, and maybe the balance is off. If you get out of the triangle, which way do you get out? Okay, is it most often back? Is it most often forward for you? That's the research element I want you to do here. Does that make sense? Okay, let's go for it. All right. If we roll the foot onto the inside, then the ski design has a chance to take over, and you'll probably feel less of the skidding sensation that you got. Okay? All right. Awesome.
Let's do the same thing down here. Weight on the outside ski. Tell me at the bottom of this run where you were. Were you in the middle? A little bit ahead or in the back? Let me know. Okay?
I find the better I get at being able to link cause and effect relationships, this move creates that, or lack of this move creates this, the quicker I can dig into those things when I know a skier needs it.
There you go. So you see that priming here is really giving the student the answer before they move, right? Because that allows them to reflect upon what may or what happened or what didn't happen to them. So priming must include the following ingredients. One, it's what the student may feel. All right, now we all could do the exact same move at the exact same time, the exact same equipment. I might feel something a little bit differently than you. So, but it's up to you as an instructor to give a few different feelings that they may feel when they do perform the task. As an example, you may feel weight under the outside foot, how much, and when in the arc. Okay? Another example might be you may feel your shin in contact with the front of the boot. Again, how much and when. Okay? What else we need to do is the cause and effect. So this is what they might notice to their turn shape. Okay? As an example, here is this is the cause and effect. So this may happen, this may not happen as a result, so they know. Right? So you might notice it now. You can control your speed when it goes from flatter pitch to a steeper pitch. Okay? You might notice that you've got the ability to tighten your arc or shorten the turn a little bit. And you might notice that you have a bit more or an increase in grip underneath your outside ski. So these are the measurable and also observable aspects of our task. Okay? So if you prime your student with those, then when they ski down and they perform the task, and you give them an opportunity, more than 2 or 3 turns obviously, then what we're looking for is for the student to give us feedback. And you heard that from some of the demonstrators there. You know, how often, if you felt, all the weight under your toes, was that most of the time, some of the time? More on the left foot, more on the right foot. So we're looking for reflection. This is
did you feel like when you dropped the shoulder a little closer to the boot, did the ski do something different? What did it feel like? What did you get as a sensation? What did you notice?
Faster, more grip,
Faster? Pressure. Okay, yeah, felt some pressure coming on. Anything to add to that?
You just kind of shut across.
Yeah, all of a sudden it's like, whoa, we're going over there. Yeah, absolutely, right? So those are internal kind of cues that we get, or sensations that we get from the movie. Okay, awesome. My speed is a little bit back. Okay, fair enough. Anyone else?
I was feeling a little bit on the back as well, mostly from moving up into the transition.
Okay. Okay.
Too much, so
Yeah.
it's like mostly on the left side.
Yeah.
Just feel a little bit more inside and over that.
Okay, perfect. Mike knows that if he doesn't bend his ankle joint enough, he tends to get up the back a little. Right? If Julie stands up and extends the hip maybe a little bit too much, that's also going to mess with our balance as we go.
Overall, at the top, you felt like you were in the middle. Then you observe you're in the middle, and that's what I saw. Okay, well, was it on the right track?
How did you feel you went there, Roger? Did you, with that sort of separation, did you feel like you got it most of the time, all of the time, some of the time?
More than 50%.
More than 50%, yeah.
More so on the ball. First half of after I both used testing, I started feeling
Great. So when you implement the task and the students reflect, right? So a well-primed task will create those scenarios without you as the instructor even having to ask the student, right? We find that students will ski down to you and they'll be just, because they've been aware of what it is they were potentially going to feel or what might happen as a result of their movement patterns, then they're willing to share, and that creates a really open learning environment. So it creates that reflection, and in this bottom one here, in action versus on action. If it's primed, then when they they're reflecting as it happens. If you don't prime it, then what happens is you're asking them to think back after the fact. Okay? And there's a good chance that you're going to say, did you feel more contact with the shin on the front of the boot that time? And they might say, actually I was thinking about what I might order for lunch. Right? So then it doesn't become a learning moment. Okay? So from that point on, if so your student comes down, they give you feedback, they provide you feedback. How do you actually know when they get it? When do you know that they actually understand it? Okay? That moment comes when their reflection, and you heard it when Josh was working with his students, how often did you feel that? They said, well, about 50% of the time. When that reflection matches Josh's observation, now we add a depth of understanding by clarifying, saying, absolutely right. I saw you on your left foot, you nailed it on your right foot. Yep, you're right on a couple of those turns, you didn't get it. And at that moment, you've got that information about how to ski is turning to knowledge, going back to what I had mentioned earlier. Okay? So what's next then? We have a student who understands cause and effect. If I do this, this is the outcome, this is what happens at the end. So what do we do next? We start to vary it. And some of those variables would be, let's go faster. Let's go steeper. Right? Let's make the turn shorter. Let's make that move sooner. Let's make that move more. With those variables, what we ask our instructors to do, is vary one at a time. Could you imagine a science experiment where you change up 3 of the different variables, and you wouldn't know which of those 3 variables caused a new outcome? Okay, so we only vary one thing at a time. Like I said, turn shape, terrain, speed, the rate in which you do something, or how much, the degree in which you do that movement. So let's listen in to some of our demo team talking about things.
In the middle, ahead, or behind? More in the middle than this morning. Yeah, cool. And that's what I observed too. Okay, so you're skiing well and you're in the middle of the ski.
The turns are moving with the ski.
Moving with the ski. Yes. So yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. And this is a really good rundown. And I'm exactly the same page as you. This is information you got this morning. I don't think we can add more information this afternoon. We have to keep this happen with the motor skill development as initiation, acquisition, and consolidation. We have to build our confidence around that just before moving on. But what we can do is a little bit vary the terrain. Right? And this afternoon, we're going to vary the terrain, we're going to do some different, we can vary the turn shape as well.
I only try to do that with like one variable at a time, right? Where I'm not gonna change the speed or the turn shape as well as change the terrain.
Here's what I'd like you to do. Use the flatter terrain here to kind of do a bigger turn so that the rate of the angle or creating the angle is kind of slow and smooth. But once you roll over the roll where those guys are standing, I want you to quicken the rate at which you do it. Okay? Drop the shoulder a little bit quicker, and when you do, guess what? The ski's probably, you might get a bit of woo. All right? Yeah, absolutely. Everybody be careful with it because it will hook up a little bit quicker. But I just want you to experience that when the rate of the same move changes, it will change your outcome. Okay? So in the reflective learning cycle, we're varying the same move just a little bit here.
So just to wrap up here, when we develop skiers, we involve them in the learning process by creating a task that is well primed so that they can reflect. We can help them understand why what action results in a certain outcome, and then from there we start to vary it. So if they know that move A results in something, then the next time they go and they're no longer with their ski instructor, they know if I do this in this situation because the terrain is steeper or it's a little bit bumpier now, I know what may or may not happen. So we don't have to hold their hand through their entire learning curve or career as they're learning how to ski. They can take that knowledge, not just the information about skiing, with them as they go. So wrapping things up, here's it is again, we're based on science, but we take that science and we use it for the individuals that are in front of us in our lessons at all times. So I want to thank you on behalf of Team Canada for coming to our workshop today inside, or coming to the workshop here today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. I'm going to share my contact information here with you. Take a picture of it, write it down. We've got our instruction manuals, our science and skiing manual, and also our methodology manual are online. If you want to send me a quick email, I think some of the demonstrators bounced that to you today, or if you're with them. Send me a quick email, and I'll pop that to you, and you're more than welcome to take a look at all of our manuals online. All right? Thank you all for your attention.